Well, hello and good afternoon, everyone. It's Friday. It's Twyla Jenkins here, the founder and CEO of the I Am That Woman movement and retreat. I am so excited to be here once again to bring you some inspiring information and resources and tell you about some of our special events that's going to be coming up to help you live your best life holistically, mind, body, and spirit. So, I'm excited that we have made it down through the first month of this year. This is the last Friday of January. It's January the 28th, 2022. And we know that God has definitely been good to us just to allow us to have another day of life and opportunity to live our best life, right? So, you know what today is, you guys? It's a really special day for me. And I'm going to try not to be emotional. You guys know what we're talking about today. We're talking about trauma. As I have experienced my own amount of trauma this week. But you know what? Through it all, God covers us. He loves us. He gives us opportunity to have experiences to know just how good He is. And literally, this week, I found out just how good God is. I've always known how good He is, but sometimes we just experience some things to let us know even more how good He is. Hey, Crystal, good to see you. Thanks for being with us this evening. And I have a special guest, Akila McCord from Bright Star Community Outreach. She's a phenomenal woman. And once I tell you my story about my week, you'll understand why she's here. And you'll also understand why I'm talking about trauma today. So, as you guys know, anybody who follows me on Facebook, you know that Wednesday morning, I had a little bit of an ordeal. So I'll tell the whole story because I didn't necessarily tell the entire story when I was on Facebook. So right after prayer and meditation, because as you guys know, we start the day with morning mindfulness. So 5:30 a.m. I am up. I am praying. I am meditating. I am just bringing the Spirit of God and to start my day, which I believe is the best way that you can start your day. And so I had a 7 o'clock appointment. And if you may have seen heard me talk about, unfortunately, my sister and my brother were in an accident in my car back in November, and it was totaled. And so I had to get a new car. That took a month. Because anybody who's in the car market right now knows, oh my gosh, like it's not the easiest thing to go through. So I go and get a new car, and unfortunately, my garage door opener is in the car that got totaled. I actually tried to go and pick it up, and they told me that it must have gotten, when they came and got the car, it must have been in there. So it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to wake my goddaughter up to close the garage door because I have no way of closing the garage door. And I decide that I was going to just devise a little plan and just be able to run through the house, close the garage door, come back out, and go to my appointment at 7 o'clock in the morning. 0 degrees outside, and I really just didn't want to wake her up because she didn't have to work that day, and she usually gets up really early. So, needless to say, my little plan, just unlock the front door, unlock the back door, drive around to the front of the house, lock the car. So I swear I locked it because I literally looked at my key fob because it's a new car again. And so thought I had pressed the button, ran in the house, ran to the back through the back door, hit the garage door button, ran back through the house. This is not even 60 seconds, you guys. And I get to the front door, and they are driving off with my car. So honestly, at first, I thought I had pushed the button because on this particular car that I purchased, you can push the button and the car can drive without you being in the car. So at first, I was like, oh crap, I accidentally pushed the button, rushing, thinking that I'm making the car drive, right? But I see that I have not pushed the button because the car continues to go down the street. The car that was the assailant car, which was literally right across the street from my house, does a U turn, right in front of me, little royal blue car, and takes off. So I'm trying to take pictures. I'm like, oh my God, get pictures of the car, that, obviously the people are in. And my hands are shaking. I'm freaking out. I'm like, my car, my brand new, not even had 30 days car that did not take me 60 seconds to be out of, is gone. So my mind just says, call the police, just call 911, Twyler. So I call 911 and take a deep breath, and was, my mind was like, it's just a car, just call 911. And the first thing that the dispatcher literally says to me, you guys, is, were you held at gunpoint? And I said, no, ma'am. And she says, good, because I was a month ago. So I immediately go into praise mode. And I was like, it really became about her more so than about me. I'm turning my phone off. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, are you serious? And so she was like, yeah. She said, are you okay? Are you hurt? And I said, no, I'm okay. And I said, I'm not hurt. I said, I wasn't in the car. And she said, the car was running. And I said, yeah. And she was like, I said, I literally ran in my house, long story short. And she's like, okay, well, let's just get the police there, tell me your address again. And, all of that. So I'm like, okay, let me just, do what she needs me to do and have the police come. So she dispatches for the police to come. I come back in the house and I'm kind of going inside and outside. Like, did this really just happen to me? Like, did someone really just come and steal my car? Like, of course, you guys know my heart is like beating outside of my chest. My hands are, shaking because I can't even hardly dial 911, right? Like, just not imagining something like this. But again, I'm just in praise mode, just thanking God that I wasn't in the car because I was running late. And I easily could have been sitting in the car and texting my client, letting her know I'll be there in like 5 minutes. I mean, easily I could have been sitting in the car, not saw the car come. And if they were a carjacker, they easily could have accosted me and, with me planning to still go into the house, right? So, no here, and hopefully she will see this or get some help, because as you can imagine, the past couple of days has been about me trying to get my belongings back. The praise report is by the end of the day, and I called Eric Lindsay, who is a wonderful insurance agent, as soon as the police took my report. And Eric knows, unfortunately, when I call him, it's probably something bad that's happened. And I've had one accident, and then my brother and sister had an accident that totaled my car. And so when he picked up the phone this time, he was like, Twyler Jenkins. And I was like, I know, Eric. Yeah, it's not good. And so, but as I was talking to Eric, I immediately went into prayer. I was just talking to Eric, and the Spirit just started praying. And I prayed that my car would be returned without any damage to it by the end of the day. And I just literally went into prayer. And I was like, God, I know that you are able to do this, right? And so he touched and agreed with me. The police came back in, and I was still praying. And I just put up my finger like, sorry, this is not me praying. This is the Spirit praying. And we're touching and agreeing right now on what just happened to me. And the policeman was like, take your time. And so after prayer, Eric and I wrapped up the call, and then, the police went ahead and finished the report and everything. So hadn't had time to confirm hadn't had time to confirm anyone to be on the show today, because I've been, filing police reports and, doing all of that. So this morning when I woke up, I asked the Spirit, I said, God, what should today be about? What's my message today? Who do I call? Do I do it by myself? And for the past 2 mornings, you guys, I've woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning. My alarm usually goes off at 5:15 for prayer anyway, but I woken up at 5 o'clock with my heart racing and reliving me coming to the door and seeing my car drive off and seeing the blue car do a U-turn and taking off and reliving those emotions that I was feeling, that anxiety, that like at 4 o'clock in the morning, out of my sleep, just. And so as I was praying about what to do today, I was like, wow, sometimes we go through things we don't even realize that has a traumatic effect on us. And I was like, you know what? This is trauma, right? And I wasn't held at gunpoint. No harm came my way. So I thought about the dispatcher who said, good that you weren't, because that happened to me a month ago. And I said, what is she waking up feeling? Can she sleep? What's her spirit like? What does that do to you? So once I finished prayer meditation this morning, I text my friend, my always in my corner, my other pastor, Pastor Chris Harris, because I thought about the Bright Star Community Outreach Trauma Center. And so I text him. He immediately called me. And he was like, we shared, and he was like, I'm out here, Twyla. I know what's going on. I'm so sorry. He asked if I was okay and all. And he said, yes, first of all, let me just say yes. Thank you for thinking of us. And you're absolutely right. People are suffering with so much trauma today, and they don't know what to do. And sometimes people medicated by drugs and alcohol and depression and anxiety. And so thank you for thinking of others to have us come and give some information. So that's who my guest is today, you guys. Akilah McCord from the Bright Star Community Outreach. I'm excited to be talking to her. I'm going to be a little personal because I haven't had a pre-call with her. I didn't have a counseling session with Pastor Harris, but we're just going to have a conversation because many of you out there, whether it's been a violent crime that your family has experienced, whether it's been grief, whether it's been sorrow, whether it's been a loss of a job, trauma comes in so many ways. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Akilah on. Hello, my sister.
Hello, hello, hello.
How are you?
I am well, just listening and absorbing your story. And wow, we have so much in common. I'll just say that.
Wow. So you guys, I just told you, we haven't even talked yet. We haven't even had time. So once again, thank you, Pastor Harris, for connecting us. He immediately did a group text and you all just got together and looked at schedules. And thank you for taking the time. I know you have a jam-packed weekend, so I appreciate you taking the time. Well, Akilah, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into trauma and what trauma means. What do you do at Bright Star Community Outreach?
Gotcha. Well, I am a servant leader over at Bright Star Community Outreach. I've been with the organization for about 4 years. I've worn many hats, but my role now is Chief Program Officer. So basically, I oversee all things programmatic to ensure that we're not just checking boxes, but we're actually providing impact to the community that we serve.
Nice, very good. And so Bright Star was my first church when I built my house, moved into Bronzeville. I was running by the little church, and the Spirit said, "Just go and check that little church out." And they have grown so much, and Pastor Harris continues to do so much in the community. Tell us a little bit about Bright Star Community Outreach. When did the organization start?
Wow, well, wonderful. We have been in existence for 11 years. This is the brainchild of Pastor Chris Harris, wanting to provide resources to the community to bring about sustainability, to empower the residents, right? And we can only do that through education. And so Pastor Harris so eloquently connected the right people to bring about this amazing organization. We have been in partnership with a plethora of community-based organizations, both nonprofit and corporate, local schools within the greater Bronzeville area. And now we're even spanning out to the Pullman and Rosemore and Roseland area.
Oh, nice. Very good. Well, a little small fact that you might not know, you probably don't know. I don't think Pastor Harris tells his story a whole lot. But when this was a concept and this was only an idea, Actually, this idea was formulated at my dining room table. So, so
You know
we,
what? You know what, Twyler? It's coming back to me a little bit because Pastor Harris is known for his stories, and I do remember him speaking about being at a dining room table. So, uh, wow, you're bringing it all full circle for me. So I thank you for that.
yeah, no problem. So literally here, him, me, Julietta Stratton, and many other members of the community and of the church, just really kind of started putting pen to paper about the Community Outreach Center. And I'm so proud of everything that it has become because our community definitely needs it. I'm sure over the past 2 years, you guys have seen just a spike, an increase, an amazing amount of people who have turned to the pun intended, turn to the Turn Center for help, because trauma in our community is not something that, even therapy in our community, in our culture, is not something that oftentimes we are really freely talk about. We don't communicate. We keep our problems to ourselves. We don't tell our family business and that type of thing. Sometimes keeping all of those things inside, and not sometimes, all the time, keeping those things inside and not really getting help or seeking help for those things can cause, harm and damage, and can cause addiction, and can lead to depression and anxiety and things like that. Over the past couple of years, because of what's going on, not only with the pandemic, but also with the violence, what has Bright Star Community Outreach and the Turn Center kind of witnessed over these past couple of years?
Well, to say wow, that's a lot. First of all, this current situation that we are in globally has exacerbated the already existing issues that we as a people in the community experience day to day. To say that the levels of anxiety and depression have skyrocketed would be an understatement. And we're seeing now the adverse effects of this pandemic go beyond or span beyond health. It's now mental health. It's now your social and emotional well-being. Even in terms of education, we're seeing the huge gap between our young people and where they want to be. As a mother of three students, my husband and I, we are baffled at the fact that the last school year that my soon to be freshman son had that was regular was fifth grade.
Wow.
Let's just ponder on that. He's getting ready to enter high school, right? So a couple years back, all of these fifth grade students who really hadn't turned the curve yet, right? They hadn't made the connection of switching classes. They really hadn't gotten their feet wet in what it means to be, a scholar and all of these amazing things, because there is a light bulb that comes on in sixth grade, right? And so there is a turn to be made. And if you look at the incoming freshman class,
nothing has been normal for them. Wow.
nothing, right? And I also have a junior daughter. And to be honest, she literally went to school freshman year, left, and came back junior year, right? And so such an impact, a negative impact, young people don't really know how to process this, right? And that takes me back to what you mentioned in regards to trauma and anxiety and depression. The only way to address it is to be able to identify it. They don't even know that what they're feeling is stemming from. It has a deeply rooted foundation in something else. And the inability to draw those connections is why you see the spike in violence, is why you see, the issues within the classroom where they're not committed to learning or being taught, because it's rooted somewhere that they can't find a cognitive connection to. It's just they don't know how to perceive it, to process it, to at all. They can't identify it. So if you can't identify it, you can't.
How can you fix it? You can't address it and you can't fix it. One thing that I do know from the outcome of what happened to me is it was young people. I mean, they were young, right? So by the purchases of my American Express card, being at McDonald's, obviously that's a young person that within 30 minutes of stealing something of that type of value, that you choose to go to McDonald's. Now I was happy that they went to McDonald's.
Well, did your car drive away slowly? Because I'm gonna tell my story in a moment, but if your car drove away slowly, just know you and I have way more in common than I care to even speak on, right?
It wasn't real slow, but when I play it over in my mind, it seems like it kind of is, right? And so the U-turn that the assailant's car, that seemed like it was so slow. I mean, it seemed like he was like I could have ran out to the car and like yanked on the car door, right? But this is about trauma. I felt like that in the moment. But the trauma. So to your point that some of these young people don't even know what they're going through from the separation anxiety from the mother or the father. Still, some of these parents are still having to work, right? And so so there's no support system, because in our culture we used to have a support system for everybody on the block. You just didn't have the parent that was at the house. You had the grandparent, you had the play aunties and uncles, you had the neighbors. They all knew who your mother was. So we've become siloed, and then parents are in denial that my kids wouldn't do that, right?
Yes.
And so as these kids, these young people, are not even understanding what they're going through, and so they're manifesting that I can go out and do something bad, or this is my fun, because I've seen news reports that I just do it for the fun of it. My car wasn't harmed. They found it less than a mile away. Now I had my key fob, so I don't know if the car just stopped running on them or what, but they could have wrapped it around a pole. I mean, I'm grateful for the return of it and nothing happened. But I think to what I really want to get to, Akilah, is that I think there's a like you said, there's a deeper rooted problem with our youth that's not being addressed, that their trauma is now being materialized to violence. Their trauma is now being materialized to, I'm just going to go and act out, right? Some kids we know in our households, they act out because they want attention. They act out because they want to belong. They act out because they think it's cool or it's the best way to be accepted, right? So tell me a little bit about how the Turn Center even deals with youth that maybe a parent brings them in and says, my kid is acting out. They know better. I've taught them better. But what are some of those other deep-rooted issues that we don't talk about or address?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. The Turn Center, our helpline, our toll-free helpline, is available to anyone in the community ages 12 and up, right? And so there have been many instances where parents, at their wits' end with their young person, reaching out to one of our helpline advocates, needing assistance, needing a point in the right direction. And the amazing aspect of the helpline is that there is no time limit to healing. We realize that, and we choose with intent to individualize our approach and walk hand in hand with that particular participant from brokenness to wholeness, no matter how much time that takes. Now, this is definitely a level of trauma-informed care with a clinical component. We have an amazing clinical director who's able to be present and coach our trauma advocates, because again, this is hard to even fathom how to approach, because even, our helpline advocates are dealing with their own levels of trauma and how they're responding to this situation that we are in. The way that we as an organization view the current state of being is like all of us being in a huge storm, right? We're all in this storm. We look out the window, we see the rain, we see the thunder, we see the lightning. Everyone is jumping, but some of us are in a yacht. Some of us are on a cruise ship. Some of us, are in a tugboat, but some of us are out there swimming.
Wow.
And some of us don't even know how to swim, right? And so it's all about vantage point and where you are. What is your point of view and how you are dealing with this? And so what the trauma helpline does is help people to recognize exactly where they are, right? Again, it's all about identification, right? You have to be able to identify, acknowledge, and then work through that, right? And that's a whole ordeal. It's not something that we can rush and speed through, which is why we coined the phrase working with you from brokenness to wholeness, because it is a full, thought out, individualized process, right? Yes. And so, from the aspect of dealing with young people, to be honest, I had my own children call in. I'm like, hey, listen, I want you to call in. Yeah. I want you to express things that you may or may not feel comfortable expressing to me, because I know this has to be stressful. Yeah. You're a sophomore, you're in all AP honors classes. They're just sending you work. You can't really get the attention that you need in terms of the assignments or the or the information that is being relayed virtually. There's a level of disconnection there, just off the jump, right? So I wanted my kids to feel supported holistically, not just mom and dad, not just grandma, auntie, and uncle, but really an unbiased way, a non-judgmental, a free area where you can literally express your now. And move through that, in stages, without, the, hey, how much time you're going to have, or can you speed this process up? Because even as parents, as a mother that works in trauma, I still, have the lens of mom, and I may say, well, you shouldn't, how long, and I never want to project that onto my young folks, because they're experiencing what they're experiencing, and it is their experience.
Yeah.
I remember when my daughter, my oldest daughter, who's a sophomore at NIU, she's a 2020 graduate. So the story behind that, no graduation, no prom, all of the above, had to spend, freshman year remote, all of these things that really changed her, from this bubbly person that was, outgoing and outspoken to a person that really internalized it, like, why me instead of why us, and for me, I'm like, well, what do you mean, why you? Why everybody?
Yeah, right.
Exactly. But I had to step out of mom, and say, here's his number. Yes. And I really want you to call and express your now. This moment, and work through that, and see how you can grow out of it, grow through what you're going through, right?
Grow through what you're going through. I love that. I absolutely love that. Tell us your story, since it's so similar to mine.
So, yes, I will share. This is vicarious trauma, and I definitely want to touch on that. It doesn't have to happen to you directly for you to be heavily affected by it to the point where you are traumatized. So, one day, last year, November, actually, I was at work at Bright Star, and it was maybe about 5:30, and I was there just wrapping things up. And my husband, we live we're Bronzeville, natives. And so we live literally around the corner. And so I'm like, hey, husband, pick me up. The kids are gone. I walked here. So can you pick me up? And so what he's done historically throughout my tenure at Bright Star is just come, drive, park, and wait on me. And, as the winter months progress, it gets darker a little bit earlier. So 6 o'clock rolls around and I'm getting ready to go, and I'm in the basement area. So my reception wasn't coming through. So my texts weren't sending. And I'm like, well, what's going on? So let me call my husband, because he should have been here by now. Let me just see why he's not here. And so when I called, he's like, I've been, trying to call you, and I've been texting you. I was literally just held at gunpoint and asked to leave the vehicle. I'm like, what? So I run upstairs, Pastor Harris is in the building, and I am like, what is going on? And he's like, yeah, the car just, this person just came up with a gun. And I was in my phone, just, texting you, trying to figure out what's going on, but it wasn't going through. And so, I'm like, wow, this really just happened. And he's like, it's crazy because they didn't even speed off. It was just like, and he left me with my phone. He said, and the odd thing, is I think I recognized him because my husband's also a teacher, and so he's been in this community, for years. We have a son that is very, very involved in athletics. He's a basketball player, so he knows everybody in the neighborhood. And so my husband just knew that he'd seen this person. Like, he can't be too much older than our son. I'm like, what?
God.
Mind you, my baby is 14. I'm like, what? And so I just remember just being, helpless, not really having an answer. And I'm the go-to person. I'm like, call me, I'm gonna give you a resource. I'm gonna tell you who to call, and that was a moment for me where I just was, I had to surrender to the feeling. And I just remember Pastor Harris, making some phone calls, and we called the police. I called my insurance, and here's the kicker: I hadn't had my car for 30 days either.
Oh my God!
So I was like, what? And so when I remember going home, and I was like, okay, so yeah, this is what this is, and I just remember, asking God to show himself, in this situation. And in that moment, I was no longer anxious. I just got on my phone and started looking for what new car I was about to get. And I was like, okay, it's okay. And as soon as I was fine with that, my phone rang, and it was the University of Chicago Police Department letting me know that my car was found untouched, like 2 or 3 blocks from where it was. Come to find out, yes, it was a teenager. I believe when we finally went to the hearing, he was just 16. So it was a year later that we had the hearing. So he was 15 at the time, and so for me, I felt so indifferent because I wanted to know, like, why? Why you couldn't even drive, and so I started asking questions, what makes a young person engage in risky behavior, like things that they kind of have a moral compass to say, I don't think that that's right, you know what I'm saying? So what situations are dire enough for you to overlook that ethical undertone that, whether grandma taught it to you, mom or dad taught it to you, or you learned it in school or saw it on Reading Rainbow, who knows, who cares? Right. There is a moral undertone present in all of us. So what makes a person, especially a young person, go the opposite direction? And while there wasn't a question that I've even come to be able to answer, and that's frustrating, but I can say it is the absence to resources. We can say all day, well, they have access to education, but is it quality? They have access to healthcare, but is it quality? Are they stigmatized by the thought or idea of speaking to someone about their feelings and their emotions, right? Are there outlets for self-expression that are healthy for them, And if you answer no to 1 or 2 of those, then of course I know why. Yeah. That's the why, right? So that's my story.
You're absolutely right. I mean, and there's blessings in that too, right? Because you could have been coming out, and it could have been you experiencing that, and not your husband. Not that we would have wished it on anybody, but exactly. I'm certainly a single female, or it is a bit more traumatic for us, I'm sure, yes. But traumatic for anyone. I mean, it really doesn't matter. And so, as these young people are, really succumbing to, like you said, just the influences of society. I think our moral compass it's just disintegrated to a point of people not caring about other people's lives, right? When I posted, my experience on Facebook, and after they found my car, just like yours, not too far away. And I don't know if it's because really my car just stopped working, because I'm sure it will tell you that the key is not detected in the car. Thank God I had the key with me, both of my keys. And so not literally, not 4 blocks away in an
Mhm.
alley. And thank God that a resident called and said there was an illegally parked car. And they parked it, great, like not even where anybody would hit it or anything like that. But to that degree of moral compass in their trauma, right? So when I posted my story on Facebook, I prayed for those young people,
Yeah.
right? That someone would show some light on them, that someone would pour into them that they're more than a thief, that you don't have to take for somebody else. It's while you're getting joy out of that, what is the real joy of hurting someone else,
Mhm.
right? But a lot of times hurt people hurt people. We've
Yeah.
we've heard the saying a million times. Those children are hurting.
Yeah.
They've experienced their own trauma. Who knows who is speaking over them that they'll never be anything, they'll never amount to anything. You're stupid, you're not educated, you'll never be anything. So their hurt is then materialized into hurting someone else because
Absolutely.
someone has hurt them. More than likely, I mean, there would have to be some, I would guess, and I'm not a psychologist or a mental a therapist to any stretch of the imagination, but most of the time, when you grow up in a nurturing home and a nurturing environment, that is what you give,
Yeah.
right? So you become, even the Word of God tells us, train them up in the way that they should go, and they shall not depart from their ways. Now we know that there are some people who depart from their training,
Mhm.
but those
Mhm.
people too are also hurt.
Yeah.
So when the turn center gets those calls from the young people, what have you guys kind of experienced or kind of realized even in your research of what is that deeper rooted issue? I know you said that it's lack of it's the quality in which they are not getting education, healthcare. So, what's going on in our own environment, right? In our communities. And then, as the police said, and I don't know if you guys see this at the trauma center, it's the lack of consequences,
Yeah.
right?
Oh my God. Yeah.
So there's no consequences to my bad action. So therefore I can become a repeat offender. So if the parents or no one puts them in the turn center, then why would they make a turn? But
Yeah.
tell me how the turn center helps those youth who do come to recognize, you know what, I really don't want to do this behavior. There's a deeper issue here. How do you guys help them?
Validation. And I
Yeah.
know that that seems extremely cliche, but how many times have you been told growing up, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just 10, you're just 12, you're just 15. You're not in love. That's puppy love. Girl, you don't know." How many times have we heard that? But you could not tell me at 15 that what I experienced wasn't real. You couldn't tell me that, right? But we are still telling others. We're being told that. We've been told that. But these young people, I hate to say it, that there's no more village. There's no more grandma and grandpa to say, well, you know what? Um, Mom she doesn't remember when she was 16. Let me tell you about her. There's no context clues that our young people are being gifted, right? Because when I had my issues and feeling like my mom and dad, they weren't listening, I talked to my granddad. I went to his house after school and he cooked me something to eat and told me all about my mother and things that she'd done. And I'm like, wow, it made me realize that I was human and that I was having an experience that anyone could share and understand and, be able to identify and resonate with,
Yeah.
right? These young people don't have that. Grandmas are my age now. I'm like, oh, they're 40s. Okay. So there's this level of lack,
Mm.
right? And they're not able to get those context clues that they so desperately need that
Mhm.
provides them a layer and a level of validation.
Mhm.
To tell someone it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be hurt. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to not really understand everything that's being taught to you in the classroom. You're not dumb. You learn differently. They need to be heard. They need their voices amplified, and the Turn Center provides that. It's a safe space. They realize that their experience is oftentimes a shared experience. And they're hearing it from adults like you and me that are able to walk them through understanding and processing that and being okay with it. And it's not an overnight fix, Twyla. It takes time, and in one moment, just like grief, you could be okay. You can be, at a party, and literally when you get home, you are shaking and not able to go to sleep.
Yeah.
That is the same thing with trauma, for a whole 6-7 months, we were like, don't park over here, keep your head, get out of your phone, put your phone down, come when you park here, come out the car. And we see how many behaviors change, how many patterns change once you've been hit.
Yeah.
Once you've been hit with that trauma. And that's the same thing with our young people. If they talk to mom and they don't get the response that they needed, they're going to stop talking to mom. But they still need to talk. And so when they don't have that access to talk and to release, that's when they're making decisions. It's similar to one of a participant years ago that was a cutter, just wanting to release because didn't have a way or an option to get that out. And the cutting gave her a sense of that release. But talking to us, you're releasing. You're releasing. Unbiased, no judgments here. You're releasing. So again, it's just providing validation. It is recreating the village that they're absent, that is absent from their reality. It's crafting an ecosystem that they can begin to depend on. And our kids are used to being let down and in the turnover, whether it be educators, whether it be mentors, external partners, programs. They're up and running one day in the community and then they're gone the next, so they are that cyclical, behavior and response, it's consistent and it's constant. So what we try to do is, change the narrative in terms of that, the commitment that we require. We require our turn model helpline advocates to be here at least 2 years because you need to be present, for your every Tuesday call, from Akila, because she is dependent upon hearing your voice at 3 p.m. on Wednesdays, right? So building up that consistency, building up that level of you can trust me. I'm here to validate. I'm also here to hold you accountable. I'm here to make sure that I'm your accountability partner. We're working on things together, and I believe that is what separates us. We're not here to therapize anybody.
Right.
We are here to be a beacon of light. We're here to, help direct to healing. We're not here to say, hey, this is the way you heal. A, B, C, do that. And then call us tomorrow. Take these Tylenol. Call us tomorrow. No.
It's not quite that simple, right? But I hear you, Akila, so much that we, that these kids do need to be validated, that they don't have the community that they used to have. Not only the community within our homes and in our, literally on our blocks, right? The block clubs that used to be, even in Chicago, it was known that and your block club meant something. I think the ownership, right? And I think that's why these gangs have had the ability to come in and take our kids away from us because of what they pour into them about ownership and about feeling good. And that's why there's been so many fractions, because I don't agree with you now. I'm going to go over here and start my own. And then I'm going to get this one and that one. And to your point about we have to get back to what we used to be. And that is a community for each other. So it was a collection of the school, the church, the community center, and the family. It wasn't left up to one person. And it wasn't about the government controlling, necessarily anybody. It's kind of what made sense. I just feel like that we've lost sight of kind of what makes sense. I agree with Chief Justice Tim Evans. I agree 100% that we need reform. I do not agree that we need to just put them back on the street. Because the officer who came and took my report said, ma'am, the saddest part about what's going on right here, right now, as he got 3 more reports of cars being stolen within the 30 minutes of being inside my door, taking my report, right? that if I were to drive down the street, find your car, and arrest the little young man, the unfortunate thing about it is he would be right back out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so while I don't follow the news a lot, I read it. And so I literally read a story this morning about even the 11-year-old or 12-year-old, I guess, that's been in the news, and they're out on bond, and they're and because he said it's a misdemeanor. And so it just becomes, how are you 12 years old and you already have a record of 3 carjackings and you're still back out? Right. So it just makes no sense that these young people are allowed to wreak havoc. How do two totally strangers, I didn't know your name this morning, right? We become connected to talk about trauma.
Yeah.
And both of us have experienced the same thing within 6 months. The same thing within 6 months. Yours was unfortunately involved a handgun.
Yes.
Mine, unfortunately, only because I was not sitting in that car texting,
Yes.
involved a handgun. Within 60 seconds, still, I'm being violated. Right.
Absolutely.
And so, and yeah, I shouldn't have left my car running. I should have turned it off. I tried to make sure that the door was locked. I try to make sure that I was, doing the best thing that I could with securing my home, because I needed to run out for a meeting, right? It's 1 degree outside.
There's nothing that you could have done.
Right?
Right.
And still they're out seeing who they can take advantage of at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Right. Why are you not
in the neighborhood to see who I can take advantage of? That's some pain. That's some pain, and that's some hurt. That's the first thing that you do. But you know what? That's why I rise and I meditate and pray. Because but God protecting me and your husband. That it wasn't worse.
Yes, it could have been a different story.
Because we hear it in the news all the time. The pregnant woman who got shot sitting in her car. The other lady who the community leader who got shot sitting in their cars, not doing anything wrong. Our children are hurting. And if you want to create some reform, the reform has to include them going into some type of program to get to the root of their pain. And why are they causing and wreaking havoc on people in our community who's paying taxes? Because the last time I looked, my neighborhood is not cheap to live in. And the last time I checked, my neighbors are not driving the cheapest and little raggedy cars. But the other thing is, you know what? The carjackers don't even really care.
They don't.
They don't even care. It can be $100,000 car. It can be a $20,000 car, right? And so so it's not even about the material possession, right? It really is about the pain that I'm suffering and that I'm in that makes me feel like I have the liberty to go out and cause trauma. This is literally causing trauma. I had to cancel that appointment. I had the same appointment today. Guess what? I couldn't drive. I couldn't drive.
Your patterns are changing because of the trauma.
I couldn't drive. So, I'm trying not to get emotional but what I know is that trauma is real.
It is. It is.
Right?
It runs deep, and it shows its head in everyone so differently. Some of us are closed off. We have, anger issues. We don't really want to talk about certain things. We are dismissive. We're evasive. And we don't realize that there's some trauma deeply rooted there, and so we process it and we live with it differently. And just like grief, people are like, oh, well, when did you get over it? You don't. You grow as a person, and your grief stays the same, but you grow. Still there. It's still there. You still recall it. You still have to address it every now and again and deal with it and overcome it. But you become stronger. You become bigger than the problem, because God is bigger than the problem, right? But it's still there. It becomes a part of you. Same way they talk about that analogy where they, yell at a piece of paper and they crunch it up and they say, well, tell it I'm sorry. And you open it back, but it's still so wrinkled and it's still, whatever, because you are forever changed by what impacts you, both positive and negatively, and, the most you can do is accept that you are changed, and how are you going to grow from it? because it's very easy to go, like you mentioned, hurt people, hurt people. If I'm hurt about this, let me go and figure out a way I can hurt someone. Let me be, vengeful, but then there are people like, hey, this happened to me. Let me educate others. Let me go and bring awareness to this and provide resources. And that is where growth happens.
Yeah.
That's the God particle for me,
Yeah.
I hear you loud and clear. And I feel that pain. It took so much for me to feel okay, like if my husband was going somewhere, I'm like, wait, let me go with you. Like, what I'm gonna do? But let me go,
Just not wanting him to be by himself.
Exactly.
Right?
It's because I'm like, maybe they won't do it if it's two people in the car, So I already saw myself making changes in my patterns and in my behavior. Because of that vicarious trauma. And my husband, oh my God, I know that he, as a man, doesn't want, his family to see or, the emotion, but he was extremely impacted, and affected. And it, was long term, so we're still healing through that, and again, God is good.
He is definitely good. And trouble doesn't last always. But I say that to say, I want people to know that trauma comes in so many different forms.
Yeah.
And it can come through grief. It can come through sudden loss. It can come through detachment. So, don't ignore your feelings. That's why you're here today, because I didn't ignore even waking up at 4 a.m. and having my heart racing and kind of seeing the whole thing, replay over in my head. And I, of course, just did some deep breathing exercises. I did what I know how to do, right? Yeah. And I just went into meditation and I went into prayer. And I knew that within an hour, I would be leading a guided meditation and prayer. And this month has been on confidence. And I said, you know what, God, my confidence is in you, that I'm going to be all right, right? But I was also okay with the fact that I didn't want to drive today. Right. I didn't want to experience right now coming out of my garage, coming around. I have a garage door open and all that. I lock my gate now because they, of course, know where I live. They have my identity and all that stuff. So just like you guys, not being on your phone, not texting when you're in the car, we change our, we change our behavior. We change what we do. Right. But for me today, I just felt safer not being in the car by myself, having someone to drop me off, having someone to pick me up and bring me back home. So whatever it is, and I think trauma is a process that you can get healing from, whatever it is. I'm not always going to be like this, but for today, this is where I am. And I accepted it and I was okay with it. Because guess what? I realized that I went through something.
Yes.
And I didn't want to ignore it. I realized that I had feelings and emotions behind it, and it made me feel a certain kind of way. Sometimes people don't want to accept how they feel.
Mm-hmm. It's easy to ignore it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there's never any growth there because you're not even acknowledging that it's there.
Right. Right. And so when you don't acknowledge that it's there and you bury it, that's when you can become addicted. That's when you can start these behaviors that aren't healthy. And I have Akilah here today for you guys to know that there is resources, there is information, there is a place where you can go to get help. Bright Star Community Outreach, the Turn Center, you can reach them. Akilah, give the information.
Absolutely. We are toll free. You can reach us between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. or 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The toll free number is 833-TURN-123. Again, that is 833-TURN-123. Feel free to reach out to me at A.McCord at Bright Star Community Outreach. Yes, that's a mouthful, but it's definitely worth it. You can visit our website, www.brightstarcommunityoutreach.com. There you will find a plethora of amazing resources, events, and information that is specific to the Greater Bronzeville community, and also currently our Pullman and Roseland and Rosemore area, because we are furthering our reach to other areas of the south side of Chicago. But again, we are a resource. We are an umbrella. If you look on our website, you see our logo is a house. That means we're addressing the entire ecosystem, not just child, but mom, dad, sister, brother, grandma, aunt, uncle, whatever that ecosystem looks like. We want to address healing.
Yeah. So this is their website. Even if you know a young person who needs help, right? Letting them know that, hey, this is a safe place where you can go. You can call 833-TURN-123. That's an easy number to remember. And we want we want to help you to turn around, turn your situation around, turn your pain around, turn your trauma around. No matter what you're dealing with, know that we are here to give you resources, strengthening hope and saving lives. So many of our young people are just hurting. They're just hurting. They really do. Well, like Akila said, they really just want to be validated. They want to be heard. And so if you need a resource, if you need information, go ahead, reach out. There's Pastor Chris Harris. You can hear his story and how and what the Turn Center is doing. It provides a foundation for healing, and it's even modeled after the Natal and Israel and all of the trauma that goes on there. We have to realize that we have trauma right here at home, and it's coming in so many different ways. If you guys have any questions, please put it in the chat, either about the Turn Center or to myself or to Akila. Just drop it in the chat. We'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you, Greg, Peggy, Takara, Tyree, all of those who joined. I think that's Danita, it just says Facebook user. But thank you to all of you guys who joined today. Again, their website is brightstarcommunityoutreach.com. brightstarcommunityoutreach.com. Go ahead and go to their website, find out when, how you can help our young people. We've got to reach them. We've got to help them. We know that we can't do this ourselves, and we have a job to do. And that's the only thing that's going to help our young people stop committing these violent crimes and stop hurting themselves. Because, when they're that young man, that young woman who took my car, who took my belongings, and, whatever they did, they hurt themselves. At the end of the day, they weren't fulfilled. At the end of the day, they really didn't feel good about what they do, and if they did, there's just some mental issues that's going on there. Yeah. Because we're all, there's a level of, certainty of just moral ethics, like you said, that I should be good, right? So we're just going to help our young people. Any closing remarks, Akila?
Oh, well, I just want to say it was a pleasure being a part of your platform today, Twyler. I hope that our paths cross again. Thank you to your audience. And again, this is a long-term movement, right? This is not an initiative. Healing is not 24-hour, one-day thing. This is a lifelong movement that we here at Bright Star Community Outreach are committed to. So once again, whatever the resource is, whatever it is, we are there. We are there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you got a lot to do. You have a flight to catch in the morning and a lot going on, but I definitely, and thank you again, Pastor Harris. I'm trying to bring up a couple of documents. Thank you again, Pastor Harris, for even connecting us. Like, I literally called him this morning at what time was it? It was right after prayer. So like 6:30, 7 o'clock, I literally texted him and told him my story, and he immediately called me and said, I'm here for you, and to call my mama, my godmama, Mother Patricia Harris. You have a call coming from me because you're doing too much. You're moving around too much. We know you have to do missionary work, and we know God got us covered, but I'm gonna need you to be a little bit more careful in these streets, because unfortunately, these young people don't care. They don't care how old you are. We used to respect our elders, not so much anymore. They will just I could have been a 70-year-old woman coming in the house and they would have stolen my car. So we've got to help our young people. We've just got to help them to know that they are loved, they are validated. We got to hear them. We have to embrace them. And even those whose parents have not taught them to do something differently, right? So I pray that the part of our justice reform system creates those kids having to go to the turn center
Me
to
too.
get
That
to
would
the
be awesome.
root of their problem.
Send
Like,
them
don't
our way.
send them back home. Send them to somebody who can help them. Don't
Yeah.
give them access to just go back out and violate again and hurt again. And we all know that when it starts with small crimes, like just driving off in cars, it ends up going to a bigger crime and a bigger crime and a bigger crime until someone gets shot or their life gets lost.
Yeah.
And so we really should be trying to help turn their life around. So community service, I mean, they are literally smacking these kids' hands and saying, okay, go home. Like, don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So we've got to do better with this reform thing.
I agree.
So Kim Fox, I'm not a political person. I ain't never called a politician, but Soror, I'm gonna need y'all to get it together because now I'm a victim. So now that I have enough time, I have enough on my plate.
That's right. That's right. Say it loud.
The struggle is real right here in Bronzeville. That two people, again, who are complete strangers, have had the same experiences in 6 months, one at gunpoint and one within 60 seconds. And so something needs to be done. Something has to be done. So thank you again, my lady. I appreciate you. Don't go anywhere. I'm just going to make some last minute announcements and I want to come back and say thank you again. So hold on real quick. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed our show today. Akilah was amazing, giving information from the Bright Star Community Outreach. If you know a young person, older person, if you need help with trauma, if you need any information or resources about how you can heal from any trauma that you have experienced, past or present. We didn't really get into past trauma, but we know that oftentimes our own childhood has caused us to suffer pain and has caused us to suffer a lot that's detached us from being who we really are. We are all children of God. He loves us. He wants us to have our best life. He wants us to, live abundantly. He sent a son to die for us. So I pray that you will turn to the Turn Center and you will get the help that you need if you are experiencing any trauma. I don't think we got any questions. Hey, Tanya, we can just have our kids call or they're, oh, Tanya did have a question. Sorry, Akilah, I'm glad you're still there. I got to bring you back real quick. There was a question. So we can just have our kids call. Are there specific things that they should ask when they call so they won't feel the anxiety? That's a great question. Uh-oh, you're on mute. Let me take you off mute.
Yes. So that is a great question, Tanya. So the child does have to be 12 years or older in order to contact the helpline. In terms of the way they should approach the call, literally be themselves. Our trained professionals, our advocates are there again to be able to hear what's said and what's not said, right? And they have an extensive background with being able to meet young people where they are and speak to their potential, and draw out what needs to be drawn out to walk that walk from where they are to where they desire to be. So whatever the situation is. And it's very organic. There's no, right or wrong way to approach healing other than acknowledging that there's a need for it and making that necessary step and being consistent with it. So that's the advice that I would give to the young people in your life, Tanya.
All right. And she even followed up with that's good. Oftentimes people do not listen. Great job. So yes, we appreciate and to all the frontline workers because you guys are doing great work and we will cover you guys in prayer because it's not easy. It's not easy to listen and to be open and to take on, someone else's trauma because we know we too, those of us who are doing the work of healing, and this is a form of healing. We also need, as intercessors, we need intercessors. So I pray for all of you guys who are doing the work because it is not easy. And thank you so much for your service and for your ministry and for all that you have done. All right. I know I let you go once and then I saw that question. I always want to make sure that we're answering questions. All right. I will let you go again. I'll remove you. As I wrap up, I pray that you guys have enjoyed today's show. Thank you, Valerie Tyler, and bless you for all that you do. We just got to help our young people, you guys, the best way that we know how. I know the young kids who stole my car, it's a deeper issue. And all of the violence that we're seeing in our community, it's really a deeper issue. And a lot of it has to do with trauma. So let's help address the trauma with our kids. Let's help the reform that's going on in the justice system to include them getting help and stop being allowed to just go back out and inflict more pain and more trauma on the community. So these kids need help, these young people, young and old. I understand we need reform. I agree 100%. But the reform cannot be a slap on the wrist to go back out and repeat. And with that, I say good night. God bless. Join us on Monday morning at 5:30 to 6:30 for Monday morning prayer. We're actually doing something really special. We're going to be praying over our households. We're going to be making sure that we're covering our households. So join us. You guys have seen it. It's on our social media. I can't pull it up right now. I'm having some technical difficulties, but 605-313-5104, access code 313, access code 235-353. Look on our page. You'll see it. All right, you guys go and have a blessed weekend. Love you all. Hope to see you, hear you on Monday morning. Have a good weekend.